Ireland is currently speed running the English experience when it comes to migration, and it is wild the numbers that the Irish are getting as well, right? So this is according to the Irish government's own numbers. In April 2024, there are estimated 5.83 million people in Ireland. So just to be clear, Ireland is a tiny country with about half the population of the Greater London area. It is a really, really low number of people in a small place. And so when they say here, in 2023, we processed 270,000 applications for entry into Ireland, 167,000 of which were visas, 33 applications for Ukrainian refugees, 23,000 citizenship applications, and 13,000 applications for international protection. You realise that this is a massive proportion of the population that's coming to Ireland every year. And this is crazy. Like, look, there are currently 2.7 million people working in Ireland right now. 500,000 of them are non-Irish. So 1 in 5 workers in Ireland, 20% of Ireland's workforce, are not Irish. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. And this is something that has only happened to them over the last few years. And this is the future of Ireland. And I know this because this has been the future that is the present of England. And you will find your towns and cities filling up with strangers. Find them congregating with people who are like themselves, because it's completely natural for people to want to move, if you're going to move to a foreign country, to live among people who are just like you. It's just a normal, natural thing to do because it makes them understandable and predictable and familiar. And these are the things you lack when you move from your home. And so you end up trying to recreate your home in another country. And the Irish government will just let them do it like they have here. And eventually it'll get to the point where in places like Tower Hamlets, you've got Bengali signs alongside the English signs. Because, and maybe in your case it'll be the Irish signs. Because the foreign people won't speak your language. And you'll realise that your country is changing and you never asked for this. And this was brought about, me doing this was brought about because I saw this going around on Twitter. It's a clip from Tonight VMTV, in which there is a debate between Irish people on the subject of immigration. And obviously you've got the frumpy middle-aged woman who is arguing for, naturally she's basically a state employee. And then you have a man being like, this is crazy. So I thought we'd watch this and just see the quality of the argumentation that's being made on the pro-immigration side. This is genuinely mind-boggling.
But we do have an issue around, deprivation in this country, inequality in this country. We should be able to do more. We should be able to do it all. We are a country that is awash with money. We can invest in our services. We can invest in infrastructure. We can invest in green spaces for people. We can invest. We need investment in community development. We need investment in youth services, and these are all part of the fabric of society that kind of will inoculate actually against the far right. That actually brings people on board and brings us all together. And
so look at what she's laid out there, right? She has laid out what is essentially a 19th century utopian socialist vision for Ireland. She's like, well, Ireland's got lots of money now, and therefore I should be redistributing it. I have a claim to that money, and I want to do this, that, and the other, or else the far right will rise. It's like, okay, even if all of this, even if you were given complete authoritarian control over Ireland to steal people's money as and when you felt like it, and redistribute it how you liked, and put it into communities to make sure they've got green spaces and parks and enough youth clubs to stop the foreign youth from becoming violent criminals, which is a thesis that the left have been giving us for many years now, but has never shown to have any validity or basis in reality. Even if you were able to do all of these things, the people would notice that things are changing because a bunch of foreigners would be there, a bunch of strangers. Why are all these people in our village? Where do they come from? What are they doing here? Why are they just loitering on the street corners? Yes, we have all of this green spaces and youth clubs we could ever ask for, but that's the thing we didn't want. And so you will never inoculate against the far right. And it's interesting as well, and the guy picks up on this later on, that the issue is that the far right might rise. Not that Ireland is going to be subsumed in millions of people who don't come from Ireland, who have countries of their own but they've decided they can just make more money in Ireland. And she's like, yeah, no, you do need to give up your money to these people. We need to make sure we have it all. Again, just think the utopian view of what she's approached here. But yeah, we should have everything all the time, and everyone can pay for it. And it's not going to be her because she works for a charity that's paid for by the government. Let's carry on.
When you talk, it sounds to me like you care more about inoculating people against the far right than you care about those communities.
Which is completely true. That's what she cares about. What she's worried about is that these communities will be like, you know what, I'm voting for the Irish version of Nigel Farage. I'm voting for the Irish version of Tommy Robinson. I guess that's Conor McGregor. I'm voting for what is not utopian socialism. And she is a utopian socialist. It's like, well, I mean, that's far right. And they'll say, yeah, sure, but it's what we want. And so she's trying to head that off at the pass. She doesn't want an insurgent nativist party springing up and actually starting to win elections, because that's what the Irish want. And so you are absolutely right. She is 100% more interested in inoculating against the far right, because the far right are the thing that is going to stop her agenda. A nativist party who don't want to introduce millions of strangers into Ireland are the people that they're going to stop her agenda. Now, notice what she hasn't said here. What she hasn't said is that we need the immigrants for growth. We need the immigrants for our services. Well, she hasn't said any of that, because she's begun her premise on, we have lots of money, therefore we need to allow me to redistribute it all, right? So the immigrants aren't going to be providing the Irish with money. The Irish have money. The Irish are doing very well economically. So why exactly do we need the immigrants? Why are they just an assumed thing that, of course, we're going to have 1 billion Somalians? Why wouldn't we have those? Why wouldn't we put up massive tenements of third worlders in various nice places in Ireland? Obviously, we need to do that. And we need to inoculate against those pesky far right by stealing the money of wealthy Irish people. And when I say wealthy, I mean people who are doing well, like 100,000 euros a year. You know, people who are actually, their grandparents would have been in extreme poverty. Their parents probably, you know, not doing great, but they themselves have managed to do quite well out of it and want to send their kids to a private school for the first generation or something like this. Like, those people need to pay for this.
You say you've got representatives around the country. Your organisation is taxpayer funded. You represent the government. You represent the government's agenda. You don't represent local communities. And it always comes back to this. We need to inoculate people against the far right. What do you mean, against the reality that they're...
Look at her face. Look at her face. She's like, shit. He has totally got me. I am literally just part of an NGO. I am literally funded by the Irish government, who, for some reason, are insisting on cramming the country with as many foreigners as possible. I actually don't represent those communities. And what I'm proposing is something those communities will fucking hate and do not want and did not ask for. And so that's why we need to inoculate against the far right. And he's bang on the money there. He's got her dead to rights. Absolutely bang on.
Facing in their communities, against the reality of a town that's seeing its largest employer shuttered and its population doubled overnight while those services are taken away.
Isn't that mad? How they can just double the population of a town overnight and be like, yeah, so let's hope the far right doesn't rise out of this. It's like, why would you think they wouldn't? And in fact, well, of course, she knows that they will, which is why we need to inoculate against them. Like, it's so tiresome.
There is enormous anger in this country. And once again, this is a panel, and I'm not having a go at you, Kieran, but you see this on media show after media show after media show. 73% of people in this country say in opinion polls, immigration is too high, it has been too high for too long, and we can't cope with it. And
exactly the same as in England. Exactly the same as in England. Roughly the same numbers, exactly the same sentiment.
And yet every panel on every media show tends to be overloaded with the same kind of voices from the same state-funded, taxpayer-funded, left-wing organisations pretending to speak for the public when you've got no mandate.
Exactly the same problem as here. When was the last time on the BBC or wherever did you see a proper representation of the public mood when it came to immigration? You never see it. Because if they did do that, it would become apparent to everyone that actually we could vote for something that was just going to change the way that the ship is heading. We can just change direction. We don't have to have this. None of this is inevitable. All of this is a product of policy. The state is choosing to import, in the case of Ireland, hundreds of thousands, in our case, millions of strangers from around the world. This is a policy choice. And this is going to have long-lasting ramifications to our country. And people never asked for this. And so naturally, they're pissed off. They're very, very angry. And why wouldn't they be? You are currently in the middle of stabbing them in the back. You are currently in the middle of depriving their children of their inheritance. You are currently making sure that their grandchildren's future is one of minority status in their own country, ethnic conflict, being second-class citizens, having the land that their ancestors enjoyed as their own taken from them and given to people who have countries of their own. No wonder people are so goddamn angry.
I think John is living under a rock. I think last year, didn't we see that the main issues around the election were in relation to housing and the cost of living?
Sorry, but John...
And where do they... Why is the price of housing so high?
John's quoting opinion polls as well. I mean, when you say he's living under a rock, he's right. He's right that over 70% of people say that it's too high. And what's more...
Yeah, but when she says he's living under a rock, what she's talking about is the progressive liberal consensus. The progressive liberal consensus is, for some reason, infinite banalians forever. For some reason, they've decided every single person in the third world basically has to be housed in Ireland. And that's assuming that we can get any out of England, like to make sure that England doesn't take them all instead. Every single one of them needs to be in Ireland. So that he's been living under a rock in that respect, because it has been agreed by the liberal hive mind that that's the way things are going to go for some reason.
Or actually, the two main government, and with all due respect to that, the two main government parties re-elected have kind of agreed with John. They wouldn't say this out loud, but I mean, they're parroting the same lines that he and his fellow travellers might have been suggesting a couple of years ago. The numbers are too high and we have to take measures to reduce.
Same as Keir Starmer. It's not that he wants to. It's just the reality of the situation is that it's growing out of control. Why did we do this? I don't know. Eventually, they'll get to the Starmer position of uncalculable damage has been done to Ireland because of this. Eventually.
Use them. That there's no other way to interpret what the government have done in terms of adding countries to the safe lift and more checklists on the border and deportation flights. That's an acknowledgement from the two big parties in this state.
So look at her face there.
That there's...
Look at this expression. Oh my God. I'm trying to be a utopian socialist here. Stop interrupting me with your facts and figures, please. I'm not interested in hearing how these things are creating real problems for people. I have a utopia to build, and you're getting in the way of that. And for some reason, she's the one who gets paid by the bloody government, even though she's insane. The things that are happening to the country are total betrayal. No mandate for it. And yet, here we are in 2025 with people like this having way more influence than they have a right to.